Cosmic here, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the Bushiroad Summer Conference that just happened a few days ago, and it would have been so easy for me to just make a pure Doom poster video, talk about the things I warned about in this previous video. I did warn about these things that we're going to talk about today, but that's just not me, that's not the content I do, so I wanted a couple days. Yes, there was a lot of brutally bad information that we got that, does break my heart a little bit as someone who's been very excited for Shadowverse Evolve for over a year now, but I want to take a step back, let that, feeling kind of go to the side and get, try to bring up the positives as well, because there was some positives in this conference that it wouldn't be fair if I just slammed Bushiroad and talked about all the negative things, which again are very, very negative, but there was some good things I think are worth their own callouts and shoutouts, because there are other companies like Bondi and LSS and even WotC could learn from a couple things that Bushiroad was doing, and I was actually quite happy to see it. So with that out of the way, let's just get into it. And, I want to start off with the good, because there is going to be a lot more to talk about towards the end of it, but I want to at least start with the positives and, start on a good note and end on a good note. So the Bushi Nav, so they did talk about the organized play. Everything about organized play was bad except the special flair that you will get if you win Worlds for Shadowverse Evolve. And this is really cool. This is something that they could extend on to other areas of the game if they really wanted to for, say, year 2 when we get grand opens, please, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, or grand prix, grand events, what have you, right? Just open major events that people can sign up for. And hopefully they could get some type of flares as well. This is like a really cool nod to what they do in digital Shadowverse with all the special titles and flares that you can get. I want to give a shout out obviously to like Legends of Runeterra, which is purely digital, and they've done something like this recently, right? Just having a trophy showcase can really help, give that little bit of extra bragging rights, but it also is just really cool, like, money is cool and, getting prize cards and what have you, but it's just a nice little thing that it doesn't take that much effort. It does obviously take some effort to program it and all that stuff, but it's just a really cool way to celebrate the players and celebrate the community. And then again, hopefully in year 2, celebrate some of the other, hopefully larger and more open events that we're going to have. And I thought this was sick. Like, how cool would it have been for LSS to have like a Road to Nationals championship or a finalist, right? Or champion, whatever title you want to put on it. And then have that be for like the 2022 season, right? Or, whatever the card that they were giving out it could be like, I'm just gonna say Art Award Champion Series, right? Something like that, something to tie it back to the game that then you could pull up and be like, hey, here's all the events that I've done well in. Here's kind of like my little, bragging rights that is in your profile, because all of us, especially again, I know WotC does it, LSS does it, right? It's Bondi and Bushiroad both do it. They have such a focus on pushing things into a more digital space, which they should. It's just easier for a lot of reasons, where now you have this player profile that you always carry around with you. So I thought this was huge, and it kind of got lost admittedly at the first run going through all the different, things that they talked about. But when I was going back through the video, really trying to pull out all the positives, I thought this was really cool. So again, huge shout out. I love this. I really hope they expand on this. I think it's great. More of this, please. 100%. Kudos here. We need more of it. Going on from there, we are getting an English exclusive collab with Niji Sanji, and we are getting Millie Parfait to join us in the following sets. This is going to be in the set 3, Flame Leviathan, which will be the March set. Well, that's not technically confirmed yet. The sets are releasing in 3 months blocks, and we know something is coming in December that we're going to talk about very shortly, so that means this one would line up in likely March. So maybe they do a shortened window, unlikely because nothing else suggests that we're going to try to catch up to Japan, but cool to see nonetheless. And, if we want to go back, I didn't do all the work to go through and to figure out exactly what card this was going to be, but this is a really cool thing that they do with other collabs where you generally get a leader card. So I'm assuming that we'll get a leader card as well. And then you usually get like 1 or 2 followers and or amulets or spells. Actually, I don't think there was an amulet. Take that back. I think it's only been follower and spells so far. I got to keep myself honest. That then have that special like collab and artwork with it. And it's like a special thing you can pull. And it's really cool. I think it's a very nice way to do the collabs. And it really, again, does go back to digital Shadowverse and having some of those other collab or alternate art cards that players love to open, to love to get. So I think this is, again, a huge win for me. What this really means is, now collabs are back on the table. So we could see something like Code Geass, right? Like there's going to be the collabs that are within sets, and then there's also going to be full-on collab sets. So they're kind of doing both sides of it, and both have their own pros and cons, but I think at least for how they presented this, during the conference, I think this is definitely going to be a slam dunk win for them. The artwork's gorgeous. I know nothing about VTubers. I'll just get that out of the way now. Like, it's not a field that I follow. I have nothing against it. Again, I think this artwork is gorgeous. It fits on theme, which is really important, right? It fits in Rune, so that's fine. And it's great. Like, everything, this looks like a Shadowverse card. This is 100% something that is very on brand and doesn't distract from what the rest of the deck would generally look like. I think that's a huge win. And again, I'm sure we'll see like the leader teased out later, which then is going to be something that goes back to the companion app, which lets you then have that as a leader with all the custom emotes and all that good stuff. So really loved it. I thought this was another, just huge win that they could do. And again, opens up the, hopefully for like Grand Blue Fantasy, right? Like, that's the big one that I'm waiting for, and to see what other ones we might get. But for right now, we just know that it's Niji Sanji, EN, and we'll see what else comes in future sets. But I thought this was a pretty easy win. And then, of course, the other one I got to give a special shout out to is the ambassadors. So shout out to Different Fight and Iggy for being the two that we're going to be seeing a lot of, it looks like, for Shadowverse Evolve Global. Obviously, Different Fight has been doing a ton of stuff in Japan. He's the one that I've been following all this time for getting my news on Shadowverse Evolved, and he was the one that, set the alarm bell and warned us all of what was coming and saying, oh no, this basically killed the game in Japan. And obviously, it's doing very well since, but DF was definitely the person who was kind of the alarm bell for the rest of us and said, oh no, this is like what's happening, because otherwise it's very hard to get a lot of information on the Japanese scene, to be fair, right? So again, huge shout out to Different Fight for keeping us all in the loop of kind of how the meta has evolved, and obviously he's played some of the events, he's shared some photos from events, and it just looks like a really great time. So I want to say, like, huge shout out to support that, because I know LSS somewhat does it. Bandai maybe somewhat does it, but it's not like official. WotC has their sponsor program. Like, this is another one from Bushiroad that obviously, like, the two that they picked are probably just going to be locked in and they're not going to take anyone else on, but it's still good to see, like, hey, this is who we recognize within the community. They've done a lot for Shadowverse, digital or physical in this case, and we want to keep promoting them and letting them be kind of like the spearheads for the community. And that's totally cool. I really love that. Again, huge shout out to Bushiroad. Unofficially, I've done stuff for them in the past with Dragoborn and some other games where, like, we weren't technically ambassadors, but we got to write for the website, and like, they are used to doing special sponsorships, I guess, for like various avenues. But this is the first time, at least that I've seen, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, this is the first time they're like full on blown acknowledging ambassadors program for the game and having two very big names. So I think that was a nice step up to say, like, hey, they're taking this a little bit more seriously, and like, they really do want to see Shadowverse Evolve do well. And that gives me a lot of hope. And I was really excited to see this, and a lot of good. And again, you might just say, like, oh, it wasn't obvious that they would get picked. Oh, they're going to do stuff for Shadowverse Evolve anyways. Oh, they got the free boxes. Like, sure, all that is true, but it's nice to see this public acknowledgement and just let more people know that if you don't know these two people, they are good resources for the game. So again, huge shout out to Bushiroad for that. I think this was another slam dunk. And now we got to get into the bad, right? So I don't even know where to start with this one. I mean, I kind of do because I have my notes. I'm just like looking off to the side just to make sure I cover absolutely everything. So Uma Musume is coming to the Western or global version of Shadowverse Evolve. For those that don't know, this invoked a tier 0 format, and I mean that in the very literal sense. If you're not new to this channel, I very rarely use that term, but it did invoke a 6-month-long tier 0. It was Uma or Bust format. Different Fight has talked about this multiple times on his channel and on Twitter, how it very much almost killed the game over there. It was not worth the price of the collab, right? Because collabs in general sets are supposed to be like a celebratory thing, right? Get more people into the game, expand the world of Shadowverse Evolve, and bring in a larger audience. And something that I've warned about, and something I am consciously very worried about for Battle Spirits Saga, as we're also having this kind of collab discussion, is if you make them too strong, like Uma was, you have a chance of killing the game on the spot. And truthfully, this IP is not big enough in the global audience. Now, yes, there is this idea that we're going to suddenly go to like 10,000 players in the Facebook group because of, oh, this Uma set brought in so many more people. That's just not going to happen. That's not a reality. But the reality is, every player has to buy this set. I don't care if you think that you can avoid it. You can't. And we're going to talk about exactly why and a little bit later in this video as we go over it. But that's kind of the other problem I have with it. So there's like a good mix of 50-50 where it's like, yes, this card does help this craft to like make it relevant. And then there's the other half of like, if you don't buy this card, don't play the game side of Shadowverse Evolve. And it's like, this could have been just like a 10-card promo pack that they introduced. And like, again, I hate to keep going back to it, but obviously I played both games, but something similar to like EX01 that Bandai just released for Battle Spirit Saga, where it's like, okay, here's 10 cards. You get one of each copy. Buy it 3 or 4 times, get your playset, right? 3 for Shadowverse, 4 for Battle Spirit Saga, right? And you have it and you're done. The other problem with this set is that it is only an 83 card set or whatever it was compared to the normal 110 to 120 or bigger that set one was. So you're going to have a lot of extra just garbage laying around, like a lot of cards you don't need unless you really want to play the all-in Uma Craft deck, which, you know, spoiler, we're going to talk about a little bit later, but it did get hit from a restriction standpoint. So now we have a set that maybe not a lot of people want to open. All the cards that we're going to talk about are legendaries. So if people aren't opening the product, now we have $30 to $40 to $50 legendaries instead. Like, this has a chance to just kind of spiral out of control depending on how much people open this set, because truthfully, it's not a good set to open. It's not. Like, if you are someone who just wants to, you know, I really love Runecraft. Okay, buy these 2 cards and that's it. Completely ignore the set. Don't bother buying anything else. Now, I am being a little bit overgeneralizing here because there might be some stuff later or there might be some side tech choices that I'm not going to cover in more detail. But generally speaking, right, you're going to buy a high handful of singles and just not care about the rest of the set. So this isn't one that wants to be opened. And unless we have a collector's market that's buying all the SPs, buying the leaders for like hundreds of dollars, I'm not convinced that's going to happen. And if that doesn't happen, box value is going to just go through the floor and then it's a failure that way. So like, I don't see a world where this comes in at a happy medium where both people are opening it for the collector's standpoint, opening it for enough singles, and everyone's happy. So let's move on from that and just talk about the other bad part before I get too much into Uma is the organized play. I want to be very direct, very brutally honest. This is the worst organized play program in the industry. Period. Grand Archive has it better. All Bandai games have it better. Final Fantasy has it better. Force of Will has a better organized play program. Dragoborn had a better organized play program. Like, what happened? Like, someone's got to own up to this. Like, I have to imagine it's just because they want to save costs. Maybe they didn't believe in their own game. Maybe they didn't think it was going to be, you know, Shadowverse isn't as popular in the West, so let's not put all this burden on the stores. Like, it doesn't make sense. They gave better fanfare to Dragoborn and Luck and Logic than they're giving Shadowverse Evolve. And if you are someone who's been around Bushiroad games, this doesn't make sense. So not only that, like once we got to the finer details, and this is the thing that I warned about in my previous video, once we get into the finer details of you have to go to a shop qualifier, you have to then win the shop qualifier, then you again that go to a regional qualifier, which are going to be in random places. Those locations haven't been announced yet, and then you win a trip to Japan, which sounds great. However, these are all going to be best of 1, so the joke is between starting your journey and the world champion is like 15 rounds of best of 1. That's it. That's not great. That's not exciting. That's not a fanfare. Like, there's no possible excitement built into that other than, cool, I want to fly to Japan. Yeah, obviously I'm going to play the game and I'm really excited for that. But then once you get into the finer details, if you don't live in a Bushiroad hub, like, sucks to suck. So here is the store qualifier information that if you have 8 or below players, so even if you have 8, which, you know, that is more reasonable for us here in Michigan, you don't get an invite. Literally nobody gets an invite. Then obviously 9 to 16, that only the top person qualifies. So look, I'm going to say it just to say it. I know I probably shouldn't put it on video because it's good. I am by no means encouraging this or telling people to do this. All those obligatory legal disclaimers, et cetera, et cetera. But people are just going to fake entries then. Like, there's no hope for these actually firing at that point where it's like, I might as well have, like, if you have 17 players, make 18 fake accounts, sign them all up, and then 3 people get invited instead of, you know, just the 1 or 2 if you have it otherwise, depending on what your cutoff was. Like, or if you have 8 players, right, the more realistic is you add in like 3 players so you can at least qualify and fire. This isn't a good system. There's so many ways to abuse this and to just not have a good transparency and, competitive integrity around this when it's so easy to just cheat it out and get people their invites. So again, part of me very torn that I want people to be able to qualify. So do what you have to do, and that's all I'm going to say. But this is not good for what we have at base level. And again, it puts all of the ownership on the LGS. And spoiler, by the time you're probably watching this video, you already missed signups. Sorry, your store can't get one of these now. So that's the other problem of they gave us a week to sign up for these and then told us to jog off for the rest of the format, for the next 6 months. That sucks, man. Cool, I'll play my weeklies for promos that don't matter, and I'll play my store championship for promos that don't matter, right? It's not like Bondi or other card games where at least you have a reason to go to locals to get rewarded for hey, here's a super exclusive promo that might be worth something. Nah, you get a foil card, who cares, right? So the prizing incentive isn't there either. And then again, of course, best of one. It's nice that the invites pass down, but that's kind of meh, right? When these are going to be so limited to begin with, it's what invites are passing down. So again, cool. If you're in a Bushiroad hub, if you're in California, Texas, Florida, Atlanta, Chicago, right? Congrats, you won the lotto. I'm so happy for you, right? It's, as someone who's done the Bushiroad dance a couple times now and is based out of Michigan, it sucks to be us. And I'm sure people in other states are feeling the same way. Now you're telling me I'm going to drive 2, 3, 4, 5 hours to one of these events that likely won't fire. Man, that sucks. Yes, you can look up the day before, go into Bushy Navi, see how many people qualified, and then maybe the morning of, only 4 people signed up. Do I take the drive? And then you realize 10 more people signed up when people actually are there, and then you missed out, right? It's just, there's no part of this that gets me excited. And then it gets worse. Somehow, that wasn't bad enough. Now for the shop qualifier, congrats. You've gone to multiple events. Maybe your first 2 events got canceled because there wasn't enough players. You went to your third event. You finally got that qualifying. You got that little piece of paper, whatever they give us. And now you can go to a regional qualifier. You've earned the right to participate in organized play. Guess what? You can only play in one. Doesn't matter how much money you have, how much time you have, how much you can travel. You get to qualify in one single regional for the entire season. That's it. Have fun and choose wisely, right? So now it's the problem of okay, do I go to Chicago, which is going to have 16 players maybe, right? If that's where the regional's being held, and maybe it's easier to get an invite that way. Or do I want to go out to California because I know that it's going to be a more competitive and more fun style event, right? So now we're playing the lotto of qualifying for regionals and then picking the worst regional to go to, because no matter what, whoever wins the regional gets a paid flight, right? And spoiler, I went to a 6-player Dragoborn regional, which gave me a flight to California. That was cool. But again, I'm also someone who wants to have some type of competitive fanfare around this game, and this is just simply not it. So we're already putting so much of a burden on both the players and the stores because Bushiroad or side games, again, combined, who cares, didn't want to put in the effort. Feels really bad. And now we're also saying that, for someone who, like me, who is lucky enough to be able to travel to a lot of events, I would be willing to go on flight after flight after flight to go to these regionals to try to qualify. Now you're telling me to get lost. You're telling me to not play your game actively. That's not good, right? Obviously this has to be, again, a cost-saving thing. There's nothing in my mind that leads me to believe this is going to be the same structure for year 2, or the game is just dead. I'll just flat out say that. No one's going to stick around for this structure if it is last into year 2. When we had to watch Japan get 2,000 player events and have a grand fanfare around their competitive environments, right? This just isn't it. So again, maybe it's just a cost thing. Maybe it's just something that they didn't have enough time for. But I knowing what they did for other games, there's no excuse for them not to do better next year. So this is just my very open letter. Bushiroad, do better. You this. I'm sure you're not happy with this either. People at Bushiroad and Side Games, there's no way that they're happy with this system. There's no way they cooked it up and said, yep, good idea, right? So all that frustration off my chest. Yeah, let's hope for a better year 2. That's all I can say. Because again, it's you buy set 1, you play your store championship, you play your regional qualifier, and then there's nothing to play in for set 2. There's nothing to play for in Uma Musume set, and there might be nothing to play for in set 3. So now stores have to carry 3 sets of yours and no real purchase incentive because there's no organized play and there's no good promos at locals. How is the game going to do well? We are really just completely banking on the IP, which is a good IP, don't get me wrong, but there needs to be something more. So, all right, let's get that out of the way and let's talk about that was the good, the bad, and the, well, let's deal with it. So now getting into the actual, heart and potatoes of all of this is the restrictions. So yes, they did recognize that it was a tier 0 format. We have the searchers that hit the consistency side of the Uma craft deck. And these are good restrictions, at least at a base, 5,000 foot view. This is good optics for the game. However, you realize that this is still a best of one game. These are still limited to one, and they are still going to high roll this shit out of you. Now, yes, they couldn't have, just straight up banned the cards because that would have just looked far worse for the product. But, Uma might not be tier 0 anymore, but it's probably still tier 1 and really annoying because now we're creating an environment where it's a best of one game and your opponent's just going to go, well, sorry, I high rolled you. Like that doesn't feel good either. So I like the idea of what they're trying to do, but this wasn't it. I don't think this was good enough. So they might change it to say that these are just straight banned, and that would be cool sometime after launch. But them at least being transparent enough to let us know up front that these are restricted, I think is a huge deal. Moving into Sword, two really, really good ones here as well. Spoiler again, both legendaries. We have Tokai, who is going to be a one that is going to give you some burst, right, and give you some speed damage. That's a 5/5 with Storm that also helps you kill a follower, so it just gives you a little bit of that punch through damage, as it were. And then Narita gives you the kind of more mid-range stabilization package, right? We have Bane, so it's like Death Touch, again, for a reminder for those that come from Magic or other games, like if you hit it, you kill it. Ward, so it is going to be your taunt thing and let you have it at 8 health. It's very, very beefy. And then Aura, so it cannot be burned by spells or effects. So it is something that just says, hey, I'm going to sit here and sit on the field. And then on top of that, what's really nice is you then also get to hit a enemy leader or follower and deal 5 damage to it. So this is a card that comes into play, burns you for 5, and is now going to have a 6/8 ward that can't be removed easily. Like in the mid-range style of decks, this is just the house of a card. So both these are pretty solid considerations for Sword. Again, some that you're just going to want to pick up 3 of for both because you're going to want your play sets for your various crafts. But 2 very, very good cards. Moving into Rune, and well, really the whole reason why Rune exists at all in the card game past Uma. And truthfully, like this is a side where I am happy we got Uma because I want all crafts to have some type of representation in the game, and without Tachyon, I don't see that happening. Like this is just such a staple card. It's not, it's not to say it is Merlin in the sense that Merlin is obviously busting what Merlin wants to be doing, but this is a, like, you need to get this as a, 3 of for your decks. And then also we just got a purely power crept angelic snipe for Rune that you get to deal 3 damage if you have the right follower on field. So this is one that just gives you more board control, more board clearing effects in Rune for a payoff that you're already going to want to be doing anyways, right? Like you want to be spamming a bunch of spells. So these two combo very, very well with one another. And spoiler, D-Shift is kind of the main focus going forward for a very long time. So this is a card that you are, again, going to really, really want due to its powerful effect that lets you get these spells over and over and over again and just clear out your opponent's board. So very, very good. Like just, it's the other side of Snapcaster Mage, right? We joke where Merlin plays it for free. This one gets it back to your hand. So Merlin is restricted by 3 or less, where this is just any spell at all that you want. There's some good 4 and 5 cost spells at the end of the day. So again, very solid card. Now, the one that I'm obviously biased with is Cap because this is so important to discard Dragon. It's a better Genesis Dragon basically in every way because we can get away with running 3 of this. And it is just a good card for enabling what we want to be doing in discard Dragon anyway. So this is, again, a card that is a automatic, 2 to 3 of. It's a very, very good card to consider. Obviously, outside of discard Dragon, it doesn't feel as good, but discard Dragon is like the main focus past set 2 for the game. We get some good stuff for discard in set 2, and I think it's 4 is the other one where it falls off a little bit, but is still the better of the 2 decks. So lots of discard Dragon in the future, and this one just being able to, again, for those that don't know, for feed, it's basically like Evolve that you get to do it once per turn, but you take carrots out of your Evolve deck, slide them onto your follower, and then they gain the effect. So this one is going to get the benefit of getting, +6 +3, right? So it's going to end up being a 10/7 with Storm, so it can go directly to face, that then deals 3 damage to all followers. Now, yes, that is on 9 play points, but you can imagine quite quickly how strong that is, right? It's a very, very good effect. And then for Abyss, and this is the one that really most people will talk about that they're very excited for because of what it means for the format health. So Maru up first is just going to be your Abyss Craft control staple. Just how it is, like being able to have a relatively decent body that can shrink a bunch of stuff on the board is really, really important for what Abyss wants to do to help stabilize. It's kind of interesting because like Abyss Control doesn't have like that much good going for it. So it's kind of like hit or miss on how much you really care about this card. But like if you want to play Abyss Control, you have to have it, even if Abyss Control is not tier 1 sort of thing. So that one feels not as good. But the one that's really important, and forgive me, I don't even know how to pronounce their name, is the other 4-drop that lets you destroy an amulet. So this is one of the only good amulet removals on a body because it's a 4 for 4/4, which is really, really solid stats that Abyss just needed in this set. So this is a huge, huge, huge note for Abyss in general to get the kind of power spike that they needed, where Maru is kind of just not as exciting. But, you know, if you want to play control Abyss, you kind of have to have it sort of thing. It's just not as exciting. But the amulet is truly the biggest MVP probably coming out of the Uma set, just because of how it lines up with the rest of the meta and how important it's going to be to remove some amulets. And again, a 4 for 4/4 is nothing to sneeze at either. And then kind of like not as exciting, but I had to mention anyways, the one that is like cool, it's there. It's not like really that important, but Haven did get another early amulet, which gives you some filtering and some card draw, which like, sure, Haven always wants extra like early amulets that you can curve out and draw and get value off of later, but it's not as exciting as all the other cards, right? Like this is something that very easily could have just been in a follow-up set. It didn't have to be in this set in particular, but still, again, something that Haven does not need at all at the time that it gets it, and it's just a cool flex option for later on. And then the last one, which again is another legendary spoiler, is the neutral, which is like okay in Dragon and otherwise like not much to write home about. So, you know, kind of cool. You get to destroy something and hit them for 3. Like it does do a lot. I do like the card itself and how it can line up in certain decks, but ultimately this is something that you're probably not terribly excited about because it just kind of gets overlooked by a lot of the other things you can already be doing in pretty much every craft, but it is cool to tinker around with, to say the least. And with that, we are at the end of the video. So again, there's a lot of like, yes, it's not the greatest. Organized play really needs an overhaul. Uma's coming. Yes, it was restricted, but it's still going to be a menace to the format. There's a lot of good and bad. I want to be at least as try to be as neutral and like cover the good and the bad as possible, because again, this is a lot of stuff that I warned about in my very first Shadowverse Evolve video, that I think the next few months are definitely going to look a bit rocky for the game, but obviously I still am really excited for it and going to be playing in my locals where I can. So like I said, lots of more content to come in the future. For future uploads, it is going to be every Friday will be a versus video for Shadowverse Evolve, and then otherwise the other days of the week will all still be dedicated towards Battle Spirits Saga, as that is my main game. I'm going to be traveling and doing a bunch of stuff for that coming up very, very soon, and hopefully Bushiroad will give me a reason to travel to future events as well. We'll see. So with that, my friends, thanks for sticking through to the end. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.